Coming Down is proudly sponsored by Colorado Ganja Gear, high-quality, artistically inspired herb grinders. So let me tell you, these things are great. I actually own one. My favorite part is the perfect consistency you get after grinding. Some grinders just pulverize your herb into dust, but the razor-sharp teeth and smooth action on these always leave you with perfect, fluffy, evenly ground herb. The craftsmanship is top-notch, made from aircraft-grade aluminum, to guarantee you won't get metal shavings mixed into your herb. But the best part, truly, is each grinder features original artwork created by Colorado artist Lori Beatty. She creates unique mandalas that are laser-etched into each magnetic lid. And each grinder comes in a silk bag and has free shipping. So just go to etsy.com/shop/Colorado Ganja Gear and enter the code Coming Down in all caps for $5 off, or go to the show notes for this episode and follow the link. Thanks and enjoy the episode. Hello, friends. Welcome to Coming Down. My name is Nathan. I'm here with Matthew.
Hi.
How are you doing, man?
I'm good. You know,
I think we both just expressed we're a little tired today, but
a little rough around the edges.
We're gonna get there.
That's right.
I have a confession to tell you.
Ooh.
I stepped out on you, and I went and did another podcast.
You slut.
Yeah. But no, I do want to shout it out because I went and did this podcast last week. It's called Ride Cocktails. It's this girl Sophie in town. She does it's more like relationship and sex stories and stuff, but
Cool.
She just gets randos on to come and tell whatever story they want. So I told a story of dating this girl, kind of the whole trajectory of our relationship and how it all kind of ended in a pretty gnarly way.
Damn.
And it paints me in a really fucking bad light. So if you want to go and hear like what a pure fucking asshole I was to this poor girl, you can go and hear that. But you know, like, I've grown a lot, I've changed a lot. I'm not the dumb idiot that I once was, but yeah, like, when I was piecing the story together, and then as I was telling it was just like, oh man, like, none of this makes me look good. So, yeah. You know, but it is what it is. Like, you know, we've all done things that we aren't proud of.
Oh, this podcast is a testament to that.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, and so unfortunately I didn't save it for this one because it was kind of a relationship one, and I don't know, not that it wouldn't be appropriate for this, but,
you know, cross-pollination.
Yeah, totally. But anyway, yeah, we'll put all the links in the show notes to go and listen to the episode. I think she's on all the usual platforms, but maybe not Spotify, but definitely like SoundCloud and Apple, and cool. There's an RSS feed and everything. So I'll get all that stuff up there, and check her out on Twitter at Ride Cocktails and Instagram Ride Cocktails. Sweet. Yeah, it was super fun, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, thanks for having me, Sophie. It was a really good time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, want to shout that out, and I don't know. I don't have much more to comment on this week.
No, I mean, like, we should probably let him get to it. It's not as long as the other ones, but it's still pretty long.
It isn't, totally. Yeah, and this is the wrap up of my 3-parter.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is where things kind of take a weird turn for my amazing summer that I was having. So,
right.
Yeah, you can kind of hear how things didn't shake out for me too well in the end. Or, you know, they did, but they didn't.
They shook.
Yeah, they shook. And, you know, like I talked previously about how I apologized to my mother. Well, she figured it all out in the end. I'll just say that much. And, yeah, things didn't go so great. So,
yikes.
But, yeah, I think we'll just turn people loose on it.
Sounds good.
And be sure to check us out on Twitter at Coming Down Pod. Best way to hit us up, either there or our email, comingdownpod@gmail.com. We love to hear from you, or if you want to be on the show, just hit us up one of those two ways. If you feel like chipping in on the show, we've got a bunch of people already doing it, and we love all of you for doing that, but we do that through the Patreon, patreon.com/comingdownpod. We've got a number of tiers, bonus content, and a bunch of merch for everyone who's in on that, which, yeah, I think we're a little late on a bonus episode, but I promise we'll get one done soon.
Indeed.
And yeah, definitely go to our website, comingdownpod.com. That'll have the show notes to that other podcast for this week. I don't know if I'll have anything else on this one, but definitely just check it out. We've got fun stuff, usually for almost all the episodes. It's got all the links to all the platforms, of one of which you are surely listening to this right now on. And, if you want to give us a review on Stitcher, we would absolutely love you for it. And I think beyond that, let's go! Okay, yeah. So previously on, so the last episode was just kind of like telling just a series of like all the trips I was having.
It was a series of vignettes, exactly.
Yeah, totally. And that was just like how that summer was going, where just everything was just coming up. It was like, it was a movie summer, it was like our Stand By Me or whatever.
Right.
Just everything was perfect, we're like jumping in the river every day, and we're getting stoned, and we're, tripping as often as we could, and like, I think we still, all had like jobs, and we're still like kind of doing that thing too, and just having the greatest summer. Just the summer that felt like it was never going to end, and that nothing could ever go wrong.
Man.
And then and then things started winding down, and things did kind of start going wrong. And so basically, like where we pick up here is, summer is closing in, and we definitely know that, it's not always going to be like this, and we're going to have to go back to high school and start 11th grade, and oh my god, and I'll get to that, but and so we do this. So we have this one trip, and so this is still kind of the end of this flood of good acid that was coming through town. I talked about, we got like the various Grateful Dead hits and stuff, and the Jerry hits and all of that stuff. So we and things had sort of dried up a little bit, and we had started to get those mushrooms from that guy in Boulder. Right. So there was still like just a generous flow of psychedelics, like no end in sight to like lack of tripping. But
sounds perfect.
But the acid was starting to dry up a little bit, and then this guy got some in, and we picked some up. I think Joe and I bought a 10 strip, and it was cool. It had this cool like turquoise print on it and stuff.
Nice.
And then a friend of ours, and I guess since this is a little personal, I won't use his name. I'll just call him Z. So he hit us up, and he was kind of a friend from like elementary. He lived down the street from me, and we were sort of close. Actually, he's the only guy I've ever been in a fight with. And and it was so stupid. We were like in 6th grade, and we had this little area in the park that was all like kind of like enclosed in trees. You could like walk under there, and then there's like a little like brook running through there, and we could just sort of like hide in there. And
cool.
I wanted to call it Narnia, and then he wanted, because we had this friend who was, I want to say he was from Pakistan, and his name was Mahmoud, and he wanted to call it Moodsville in honor of Mahmoud, who wasn't even around that day. Like, that dude would come around and like play football in the park with us occasionally, but he wanted to call it Moodsville, and I wanted to call it Narnia, and we were just like arguing about it, and then it got like heated for no apparent real reason.
Fucking
and then
stupid kids.
Either I tackled him or he tackled me, but it like led to kicks and punches being thrown, and like, this is like the only real fight I've ever been in. Anyhow, so Z was a really cool guy, and he lived down the street from me, but he was kind of like a little more of like a jock, and hadn't gone down like the rabbit hole with Joe and some of our other friends that summer.
Right.
But he knew that that's what we were up to, and so he hit us up and was like, yeah, like, I'm kind of interested in tripping, and we're like, all right, man, like, just so happens we got a 10 strip of this good acid, so like meet us downtown and we'll do it up. And so as per usual, we go down there, smoke weed in the afternoon, do the rope swing a bunch, and then basically we just tore it up into like, well, I think we gave him like a smaller section, what we thought was like 2 hits, and then Joe and I just like tore the other ones in half, split that, and we each ate them.
So it was a 10 strip. You gave him 2 hits, and you guys each ate.
We ate
3.
roughly 4.
4, yeah, right.
Yeah, roughly 4.
I never learned how to do math.
And so like we're just hanging out, and and we're like smoking weed and waiting for it to come on, and out of nowhere, like right as we're just really coming up pretty hard on it, the sky breaks, thunder, lightning, and it just starts torrential downpouring. And we're down at the train bridge, and that whole area, I mean, it's kind of, there's like trails and like a nature walk and stuff all around there. And so we just start running, and my friend, we finally get under some decent tree cover, but we're just soaked, and we're just like running in the rain, like through the trees, like tripping balls.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I had like a camouflage jacket on, and so we finally get under these trees, and our friend Z is just like, you can see his eyes are just going super wide, and he's just like, and he's like, we're in Nam. And he's just totally tripping out on this whole thing because it's pouring rain and I'm in a camouflage like army jacket. And so then we sort of like play into it. We're like, yeah, dude, Charlie's in the trees and stuff. Jesus. So we just start like running around the forest and like ducking behind logs and stuff and just like having a fucking hilarious time with it. But you could tell it was hitting him like real hard, and I mean, it was his first time.
Sure. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. And and one of our biggest faults of the evening was taking the amount we did, but we were pretty seasoned at that point.
Sure. But I mean, unless it was super mild blotter, like 4 hits is a lot.
Yeah, totally. And so we were definitely having a rough time keeping it together, but and then because it was raining and continued to rain, we didn't really know what to do, and so we like walk up to downtown, or like to the Old Town Square, and like we're just soaked.
And this is still like midsummer.
This is getting late into the summer, so this is probably like end of July or early August. So we're probably like 3 weeks before school's gonna start again, and
it doesn't really rain that often this time of year, right?
Yeah, well, we get thunderstorms in Colorado. I mean, it's pretty dry, but like we get thunderstorms.
You get the occasional thunder shower. Yeah, it's same thing in Bend. Like,
yeah, totally.
It'll just fucking dump and like lightning and stuff.
Yeah,
but so like for a few hours.
Right. Yeah, it's like a few hours of like some heavy rain, and then it may not rain for a few days or a week or whatever. So we're just soaked, and it is just continuing to rain like kind of all night. So we're like, damn, dude, this is kind of like really putting a damper on like what we would normally do, which is just start like heading, like walking home, right? Adventure-sizing, yeah, as we'd like to do. And so we're like, fuck, man, what are we gonna do? And so we walk back downtown, and we run into Brett, or St. John, as he was known at the time,
San Juan,
and we're like, dude, like, we took this acid, and he's like, oh man, like I just took some mushrooms or something, We're like, okay, cool, like you want to hang out? And he's like, definitely. He's like, I think my friend Daniel, I think his mom is gone for the night, so we could probably just go and post up there and like get out of the rain. And so it turns out that is what happened. He didn't live too far. So that was the first time I met this dude Daniel. Shout out Daniel, cool fucking guy. I haven't seen him in a long time, but yeah, fucking really cool guy.
Nice.
Yeah, and so we ended up over at his apartment, and like his mom worked nights, so it was like we could hang there until like 6 a.m. or something.
Okay.
And then she was going to come home from work. And so we get there and we just start playing Risk.
Oh Jesus.
And so it's me and Joe and St. John and Z, and then this other guy Nick, who was friends with Daniel. And Z was too gone to play Risk, so we're just sort of checking up on him. We just like kind of put him on the couch with a movie and some toys and stuff, and he's coming around, like he's walking over and like checking out the game and pawing at the walls, and like, and we're like jumping away to like check on him and hang out with him and stuff. So like everything's seeming like pretty good, but he is real tripping, like dude is he's having a great time, like shows no signs of any problems at all. He's just like, I can't play this game, like, like I'm fine, like you guys just like, we're good, we're like, all right, cool. So we start playing Risk, and like, oh man, playing Risk on acid is just insane. And
yeah, like, I agree.
Like it's like the boards breathing and moving and stuff, so that's like happening. But then we start like getting into the game, and everyone's like taking on these roles, and I'm like getting way in my head about it, you know, like I'm like attributing like old world leaders to like all these different people. It's like, oh shit, Daniel's like playing like Stalin, and he's like trying to take like Europe from Russia, and like he's playing like the Northern Asia, and like, you know, and then like I can't remember where I was, but like Joe's like in America and just playing like the real American role. Brett literally didn't attack the entire time and just only put his 3 armies in India and just like hold up in India like the whole time. So Brett's just playing Gandhi and just like just total peaceful, and like, dude, I'm just like, oh my god, yeah, this dude Nick, he's this real like, he's kind of like a wannabe gangster sort of dude, but he's got this like real mousy face, and I'm just like, this guy's gonna like fucking screw everyone over, and like, you know, don't trust him with alliances and shit. It's just like, oh my god, man. So we were having so much fun.
Wow.
I don't think there was even a remote chance we were gonna finish that game, but we played for a good while, and then things start to shift a little bit for Z, and he's starting to feel a little weird, and he kind of like brings it up. He's like, hey guys, I don't know how I'm feeling, you know, like I'm kind of like crawling out of my skin over here. And we're like, all right, man, like maybe it's time to like change the scene, you know, like let's get out of this house, you know,
move to the next screen.
Yeah, we've been in here for a minute. So and I want to say maybe that dude Nick wasn't tripping, or maybe Daniel wasn't tripping, or maybe I don't know. Someone drove. I was gonna try and like justify something here, but
someone who may or may not have been tripping drove.
Yeah. So we all hop in a car, and we're like, let's go drive up to the reservoir. You know, like, let's get into some nature and stuff. And halfway there, Z is like, hey, like, we got to pull over the car. And so we pull over, and he like pukes. Oh, wow. And we're like, oh, okay, this is pretty weird. Like, because we're 6 hours in, like, I was gonna say, peak has kind of come and gone, even, you know, for most of us. Like, we're all like kind of on the just riding it out bit. Like, the peak has definitely come and gone.
That's bizarre that you start getting adverse effects like past the peak, you know.
Yeah, and you know, so it could have been anything though, like
food poisoning, who knows,
dude. And he's still like very cogent through the whole thing, and he's not like, I'm way more worried than he is, you know. And luckily St. John's like our guru, and that dude's just like perfect to trip around and like manages to take care of everyone. He's like, no, this isn't a problem at all. Like, we'll just stop, we'll get him some milk, we'll get him some like crackers and like, you know, whatever else he needs, and like it'll be good. And so we did. And then, like, and then we go up to the reservoir, and then, God, I think we gave him some milk and crackers, and then I think he puked again.
I was going to say, milk might not have been the best choice.
Well, and again, you know, urban legends, the word was that milk would help bring you down. Like, OJ would boost you up, and milk would bring you down. Huh. And, yeah, I don't know if there is any science to that at all, but...
I mean, I do remember the old adage about vitamin C like making your visuals more intense, but never heard anything about milk.
I don't know, but that's what we tried. And you know, like some crackers and like some cookies and stuff, just to try and like get some food in his stomach and stuff.
Sure. No, and that makes sense.
And you know, like everything was more or less fine, and again, he was real just sort of like okay with it, but you could tell that he was like not feeling great. Like, he was really spacey, and like he was cogent enough to know like what was going on, but then was still spacey. Like, it was like he was still peaking, you know, like we were 4 hours past our peak, and he's still like at the peak of the mountain, dude, just like at the top, just like like couldn't, you know. And so that's a long time to be there,
no
you know.
Kidding.
And so we go up to the reservoir, and we walk around for a while, and like everyone else is like pretty much winding down, and he's still just like flying high,
just white knuckling it.
Yeah, totally. And we're all just like, well, man, like, fuck, dude, like, none of us have a house, like, we just kind of like gotta all go our separate ways, and like we'll get you home and stuff. And he's just like, okay, like, that's fine, I can just like go to my room and stuff. But it's like, you know, we all lived with our parents. I couldn't bring tripping homeboy over. No, none of us could, you know?
Exactly.
So that's kind of what happened. So, like, yeah, and actually, I want to say I worked that next day, but it was like an afternoon shift. So I was going to go home and get some winks and whatnot. And And so that's what happened. So we drop him off, and everyone like goes home. I think I snuck back in to the house, and I don't know, yeah, something to that effect. Went to work, get off work, and I wasn't going to do anything because I was definitely blown out from the night before, and I was looking to just chill. And Joe calls me, and he's like, "Dude, we got to go downtown. Like, there's a problem with Z." And I was like,
Whoa.
"Oh, really? Like, what happened?" He's like, "Well, first of all," and I think this is how this goes down. I might be getting this wrong, but for the purposes of this story, I'm pretty sure that Joe is the one who found out that dude like accidentally double cut the sheets that we got. So like what was a 10 strip was actually a 20.
Oh.
Yeah, and so we gave him 4 for his first time, and we ended up taking 8. Which would explain like why we were so fucking like
yeah,
because we were pretty fucking gone for a good while there. And yeah, I remember like the running around in the forest was just like definitely some of the hardest tripping I had ever done. Like, yeah, we were really getting into it, you know?
Damn.
Yeah, and so we were just like, oh fuck, man, like we gave him too much, man. Like even like the 2 may have been too much because he like really like his chemistry or whatever just like took it in a weird way, you know?
Some people are more sensitive.
But apparently his come down did not go well at all, and I guess he sort of like freaked out in his house a little bit and like just left and like called Joe and said that he was like, I don't think he said he was gonna kill himself, but he was like he was speaking very cryptically about like some really weird stuff, and I was like, I'm going downtown and like I don't know what's gonna happen to me and all this stuff, and it was like, oh god.
Whoa.
So that's when like Joe gets a hold of me. He's like, we gotta go find him.
Yeah, no kidding.
So he picks me up and we head downtown, and we just find him like sitting up against a wall and just sort of like rocking a little bit. We're just like, hey man, like how you doing? And he's just like, I don't know, man. And he's just like just completely depressed, and he's just like, I don't know anything anymore. And we're just like, yeah dude, pretty wild night, right? And he was like, yeah, I guess, you know. And just was like, and we're just like, oh my god dude, like
Fuck.
we broke him, man. Like, and he was always a real happy-go-lucky guy, like kind of even like a prankster sort of, you know, just like. And yeah, and we're just trying to like talk to him. We're just like, well, what are you know, like what are you thinking, man? He's just like, I don't know, man, I don't fucking care. We're just like, dude, like this is not the normal reaction either.
Man,
like
that's
most people
intense.
trip for their first time and they're just like, wow, like the doors of perception are open, you know? And like,
yeah, well, you know, I wonder if like he just like hit something that he couldn't deal with, you know, in his psyche, like
surely, yep. And you know the kind of person he is, like maybe I don't know. I grew up in a household that was very emotionally open, and so it was always easy for me to just sort of like move in and out of like all the emotional rides that you go through when you trip and stuff.
Right.
But if you are a little more rigid of a person like that, I could see that being very jarring, you know?
Well, especially if you have some skeletons in your closet that maybe you haven't dealt with, you know?
For sure.
If you've got some kind of like shame or like like maybe some type of like injury, like whether it's abuse or whatever, like something that you just is like has always been in the background that you've never really dealt with, like that will come up, man.
Yeah, and like long story short, we never really got it out of him what did it to him that night, you know. You know, and I think we just sort of stuck with him that night and just hung out, and we're like, you know, like, let's go, like, take a walk or whatever, and we just hung out. And, like, again, he was okay. He wasn't on, like, suicide watch or anything, but he just was not himself at all. And we're just like, man, I don't know, like, what happened, you know, like, hopefully he'll just bounce back in a couple days. Like, you know, you do need some time after that first trip and stuff. But he never really did bounce back. And I mean, I haven't seen him in a while. I did talk to him. I have talked to him over the years, and he definitely is fine these days.
Right.
But he was not for like a good while, you know. And he really wasn't into drugs, but he did start smoking weed. And I don't know if it was good or bad for him. Like, he definitely became like a really weird sort of depressed person for like a good while there. And like, and then also wanted to keep tripping, but then like wasn't telling people about it. Like, oh shit, I just had this memory of like, we went to this party.
Weird.
And he was there. And then we noticed him acting weird. And we were like, dude, are you all right, man? And he was like, yeah, I just took like so much acid. And we're like, dude, why? And he like did it by himself and like wasn't gonna tell anyone. And he was like, yeah, I wasn't gonna like say anything, but... And we're just like, dude, like, how much did you take? And he's like, I don't know, like, I think like 8 or 10 maybe. And we're just like, dude,
oh my god,
like, and you're just at this punk rock party where everyone's like drinking. Like, this is not the environment, man. And he's just like wiling out and shit. And we're just like, oh no, dude, I think we like did a bad thing, you know?
Fuck,
because like, again, he approached us, but you know, we were just like happily just fed him his first doses. And
yeah, man, you can't be responsible for what drugs do to people. Like,
no, and ultimately I don't feel responsible, but it's one of those things that's always going to stick with me, man.
I get it, dude.
You know?
I've like held people's hands while they fucking walked down the fucking path to their destruction.
Yeah,
you know, like it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, to this day, you know, if I had any real regret of any of the drug stuff I did, and especially stuff from that summer, you know, this is the one. Just like, but again, I had no way to know. Although, in hindsight, in retrospect, and we've talked about a little bit that, you know, there is a sliver of a percentage of people that maybe just aren't cut out for psychedelics, and
yeah,
I couldn't have known, but like, he did seem like that kind of person who, like, because I was shocked that he even was interested. I was like,
right.
I was like, man, you ever even like listen to a Floyd record, or like, what do you know about any of this? You know, like, this isn't your world, man. Like, you know, like, we've stopped hanging out since like 6th grade, or well, yeah, because shit, I don't know if he went to junior high with us, but I lived right next to him, so I saw him every now and then. Anyhow. Yeah, it just really surprised me that he wanted to get into it, and I think he just saw us running around and like...
Well, I mean, who's to say he wouldn't have gotten into it some other way, or that he wouldn't have had the same kind of like brain chemistry changes just naturally?
For sure,
you know?
For sure. And he probably would have, like, if we refused or couldn't get him there, like, he certainly knew other people, you know? There was the punk rock kids that, like, John knew a little bit more, and like, so there was that friend group, and he knew all of those guys and was hanging out with them too. So yeah, he probably would have got there eventually. Yeah, it was just one of those weird things, dude. And again, like, I don't blame myself, and I don't necessarily like feel responsible, but like, I can't help but feel bad, and it's just always going to be there in my head of just like, damn, that was the time that I fucked up.
No matter how you slice it, it sucks for sure.
Yeah.
You know? And like, what asshole fucking double cuts doses? Like, come on. You know?
I guess he didn't know. He just didn't know what he was doing. He bought like a couple sheets and then didn't realize how they were supposed to trim down or whatever. So, and you know, in hindsight too, I don't remember if we thought that they looked a little big, but we were just like, whatever. Like, I don't know. Just like, at that point, we had seen everything. It's like, oh, we've seen like microdots and gel tabs and acid with all these different prints and colors and varieties. So we were just like, this looks like fucking acid to us, you know? So we just rolled with it.
Man, amateurs.
Yeah, well, for sure. So that was sort of the downturn of that summer. That was when we were just like, oh man, like,
yeah, that's a bummer, dude.
Shit got real. Like, something real happened here. And
yeah. I mean, it's a good thing that no one actually got hurt, but, you know... Like...
No, and no one did get hurt. It definitely changed him forever. I have no doubt about that. And again, he's fine now, to my knowledge. Yeah, actually, he hit me up a while ago to come visit, so cool. I hope he does. But, yeah, I don't know. So that definitely was just like, okay, well, summer's winding down anyway, so let's just take it easy from here on out.
Yeah.
And so it was, and so that just sort of was the rest of the summer. We just didn't really like pursue tripping anymore, and we were like, we better get our head in the game for high school again, and you know, so we just like kept going downtown, like smoking weed down by the train and stuff. And that's also this is a fun little aside. So that train bridge that we would jump off of into the river, we found that in the middle, because there were two giant metal columns or whatever that held that bridge up.
Right.
And the slats in the train were just wide enough that you could squeeze through them.
Oh, no.
Right where those columns were.
Oh, no.
And then you could just sit on the top of that metal column right underneath the tracks. And so we would listen for a train and then run up there and then jump down between the slats and just sit right underneath the train and like smoke a joint as the fucking train like went right overhead. And I mean, it wasn't really dangerous, like, because we're not stupid enough to stick our hand up there or anything.
Exactly. I mean,
you know,
you might get like some grease dripping on you or like something like that.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, so that was a fun little like thrill ride thing we did at the end of that summer too. But yeah, and so as things were winding down, we were still like getting access to those mushrooms, and so I decided to buy an ounce before high school started. I was like, I might not actually see these guys on the regular once I go back to high school, so I better just pick up an ounce of these mushrooms. I might try and sell a few to some of the kids like that I knew, and maybe like some people when I go back to school, and then that'll pay for like, you know, the quarter or whatever that I'm going to hang on to.
For sure.
And that was the plan. And so I... so I went out, what was it? So I got the ounce of mushrooms, and then it was like the 2 days before high school was going to start again. And I had already split them all up. I had like a half-ounce baggie, and then like 4/8 like already cut out or whatever. And then I had a scale, and then just like some baggies, and I just had all of that shoved in my leather jacket, which kind of had like the lining was like broken a little bit, and so I just had that all like stashed in my leather jacket, like hiding in my closet, right?
All right.
And I go out with my friends Pat and Austin. It's like the last day before school, and like we're just gonna go meet up and go to the park and smoke a bowl, and that's, you know, that's all we do. We go out, we smoke a bowl, and I was like, well guys, you know, like I gotta get home and everything. And they're like, yeah, no problem. And they drop me off, and I walk through the front door. And I look over, and there's my mom and her wife sitting there at the dining room table, sitting side by side, and they've just got like a paper sack on the table. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And walk over, and they're like, they don't say, I say hi, and they're just like, hi. I'm like, oh no. And I walk into my room, and it's spotless. It's clean.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I like throw my jacket down. I'm like, huh. Shit. And so I walk back out, and they're like, we need to talk. I'm like, oh yeah, I know what's happening now. So I sit down, and in this paper sack is all of the contraband from my room. So that amounted to like, I think a bag of weed that I had, the mushrooms, the baggies, the scale, a couple Playboys.
It's not contraband, it's literature.
I know, right? Yeah, for the articles, Mom. And then my leather jacket. And I have, to this day, Mom, tell me, I don't know. To this day, I have no idea why she was inspired to like search my room at that moment. Because, again, I had already sort of wound down my summer. Like, all the crazy stuff was a month behind me. Like we weren't really getting into that much, like smoking a little weed here and there, but we weren't staying out that late. We weren't like quote unquote staying at friends' houses all the time and stuff. Right.
Maybe that's why.
Maybe, I don't know.
You were acting too normal.
I know, right?
I figured something was up.
Dude, right? Could be, dude. I certainly had to assume she suspected me of smoking weed at this point. In fact, I think the very first time I smoked weed, she like called me on it, and I was just like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, but she didn't like do anything about it. And and so to this day I have no idea why they got the wild hair to search my room, but they did. And then, you know, they were like, oh God, I'm trying to remember exactly how it went down. I don't think we actually talked that much before all of a sudden the doorbell rings and my dad shows up and his wife and my stepbrother and my grandparents and a friend of the family and her husband and her daughter.
Oh my God!
And
what?
It's intervention time.
Shut your mouth!
Yeah, totally.
Oh my God, Nathan, we found these Playboys, and we need to have a talk with you.
Well, that wasn't what it was about,
Fuck.
Yeah, and so it's it's immediately this like, oh, like we're all concerned about you, that you're like have a drug problem and all this stuff, and I was like, man. You guys just really don't get it. Like,
I need these drugs to worship Satan.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just like trying to explain to him, like, yeah, like, I get it. They're illegal. I get it. You're scared, but like these are not problem drugs.
Oh, did you go for it? Did you like try to fucking sell it? Like,
oh, of course I did.
Nice.
Oh, I got furious. The intervention was basically everyone just sort of piggybacking on each other to like. Kind of like give me a hard time about like doing drugs, and me sitting there trying to explain like, no, like these are psychedelics, like I don't fuck with heroin or meth or cocaine, like that's not my jam, like this is a different thing, and like I've done my research and I know what I'm doing, and like none of you understand what this is, like this is a different thing, like I get it that like you're worried and I'm young and it's illegal, fair, but like this is not what it's about. And and the fact that I am split up, they're just like, oh, like if you needed money, you don't need to sell drugs and all this stuff. I was like, it really isn't about money. It's just about sharing it with like my friends and stuff.
Sure.
And, and like I remember at one point it got really heated. Yeah, because there like the whole thing about money like kept coming up, and at one point I like pulled a $20 bill out of my wallet and just like ripped it up, and I was like, "See, I don't care about money."
Oh my God!
It like got all crazy, dude. Like
that might not have helped your case that much.
Oh, it surely didn't, because I was getting fired up, man. I was just like, "This is bullshit, dude. You guys can't just all gang up on me like this."
Now, at this point, did you know that your mom had smoked weed in the past?
Yeah, I'd found her weed.
Okay,
and she had told me that she smoked weed.
Okay,
but Susan didn't like weed, and I think my mom didn't really smoke it or like hid it, like barely smoked when Susan was around because Susan didn't like it. Susan was like really uptight. She was the worst.
Lame.
Yeah, totally. And that was kind of her thing, was like, well, I don't want illegal drugs under my roof and all this stuff, And,
right. And your dad was super churchy and like...
Oh, my dad's super churchy at this point, so of course he's got plenty to say on it. My grandparents were the coolest because they were just like, well, like, we're actually just worried about you, and like, this doesn't really affect us, but like, we're concerned about you. The friends of the family thing was like weird as fuck.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Also, that friend of the family surely has smoked a ton of weed with my mom. Like, I'm sure of that. Anyhow, so yeah, and I was kind of just like, yeah, and I think I pulled that card out too. It was like, well, you smoke weed, I found your weed, and all this shit, and just was like, oh man, and I was just furious. I just was like angry as fuck, because I was like, dude, you guys can't do this to me. Like, you don't understand like what I've been doing and like what this is about, and like you just think I'm a heroin addict, and that's not what it is, and like, and then you're all just gonna like tag team and go around the room because it's like 10 against 1, and so yeah,
that sucks.
So like for the listener at home, interventions don't really work. You're just gonna anger the person. Like,
I think interventions are just for the people who are like the ones doing the intervention, like so that they can feel better about themselves because they tried.
Yep, totally.
Like that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah,
shaming someone into getting help might work occasionally, but like you're statistically, I think the rate is probably pretty low.
Yep, totally. Yeah, absolutely. So
like positive reinforcement works a lot better than negative reinforcement for most things.
Oh yeah, of course, and yeah, and again, it was just, even in hindsight, I'm like getting a little frustrated by it because it's just like,
Did they play the whole "we want you to learn from our mistakes" card? Like,
I'm sure that came up. I'm sure every fucking trope came up because that's what it felt like. I was like, this is such bullshit.
Our generation experimented with drugs, and we don't want your generation to have to go through the same mistakes that we made. It's like, man, shut the fuck up about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure.
Did anyone read a letter?
Did anyone read a letter?
I feel like someone did read a letter, dude. Someone had to have.
Dear Nathan.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that I really care about you. And ever since you started smoking the devil's lettuce, I feel like I can't connect with you anymore.
Yeah, man, I'm sure. God, it felt like every fucking thing you hear about. Yeah, and I was just like, oh, man, like and I was just so incensed too. I was just like, I can't fucking believe this is happening now after all summer, man. Like,
well, it's like no one had even made any attempt to talk to you about this before this point, right?
No, I thought no one had any idea, which is what's crazy. And so again, like, Mom, maybe we'll have to like talk about this soon. But
I feel like interventions are what you do after everyone's talked to you and like said, you know, like, hey man, have you thought about not? And you're like, no man, I got this. And then, you know, everyone's like, well, we've all talked to him and he's totally delusional. Like, what if we all sit him down? Like, I feel like that's the fucking line that events usually follow in a fucking intervention scenario, not like, we suspect that he's smoking marijuana. Let's all ambush him. You know, like,
right.
Fuck that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know what they
How's
suspected.
That gonna go?
And again, like, maybe they suspected that I was into some harder shit, and then found the mushrooms and equated that. Because, again, I don't know if at the time, if anyone in that room really understood the difference between mushrooms and cocaine and acid and heroin, you know.
The DARE program did a lot of damage.
Yeah, totally.
Like, as far as...
and just from a lot of people's like layman standpoint, and it makes sense. Like, if you know, if it's all Schedule 3 or whatever, right? Then it's all the same. Yeah. Like, it's all on this level.
Why would you eat these mushrooms? They're just as bad as cocaine. Do you hear the words that you're saying?
Yeah.
Like, they're mushrooms.
Right.
Fucking hell.
Right. Yeah. Also, like, you're just completely out of your element. So, needless to say, that did not go over well. It ended with me yelling a lot and crying probably, and just like telling everyone to fuck off. And
like you do.
Yeah, and then that was pretty much it. And I think I like kind of stormed out of the room. Was like, I have nothing more to say to any of you, and like, you clearly can't have anything positive to say to me, so like, we're done. Like, you can all fucking go to hell. And that was pretty much that.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then I went to high school, like, the next day. I want to say it was, like, the next day.
Immediately after, though, did you just go to your room? Did you just...
Yeah.
And then just not come out? Is that, like, how that ended?
Well, it was like early evening, so yeah, I think I just, like, went to my room, like, went to bed, and was like, alright, well, time for school.
Fuck.
And,
oh my god, fuck high school.
Yeah, ugh. And so I believe, that I went to school... And, God, I'm trying to remember how this went down. Somewhere it might have even been before I left for that first day, or maybe she gave me a couple days, but my mom put the, like, hard lock on my life and was like, this is how it's going to be from now on. Like, I am driving you to school, I am picking you up from school, you're coming to work with me, and then
Jesus.
I am bringing you home, and like, you are like grounded indefinitely and like not doing anything. And I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work.
No fucking kidding.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I did about 2 or 3 days of that. And actually, and so this is so funny. All right, so Mom, I do remember this. When she was out here, we were kind of talking about this, like, time. And she was like, oh yeah, you ran away from home. I was like, I don't remember that. I think I just moved in with my dad. And she's like, no, you fucking ran away for like a few days.
Wow.
And now I do remember that. I did, in fact, just leave. So I think I did that first week of school. And then Friday, I was just like, well, fuck this. And I just left. And I was like, you can't stop me. And, I'm just going to go figure it out, I guess. Because, like, I'm not doing fucking lockdown with you anymore.
No shit. That's fucked.
Yeah.
I don't care how cool your mom is. Like, it's just fucking bullshit.
Yeah. And... for the listener at home, you've already heard the episode. My mom is very cool, and we have a very good relationship to this day. So,
by the way, your mom is one of the coolest people I know.
Yeah,
but
so this is
still bullshit.
Yeah, so this is not to disparage my mom at all, or anyone involved in this story.
No, and I feel like you've already indicated that perhaps her partner at the time was like predicating a lot of this.
Yes.
So
Yep. So yeah, and and like. she was my age now at that time. So, like, I could see my kid getting into something that I don't understand and just reacting very poorly. And, and that's exactly what happened. She just didn't know what to do. So, it's fine. It's all water under the bridge now. But, this is the story. So, anyhow, so I did. So, I left. No plan. Like, packed a small bag of whatnots and then just fucking took off. And
had your little bindle.
Yeah, totally. Ended up meeting up with St. John and I want to say my buddy Abe. And I think I couldn't have been out on my own for more than a couple days because the weather was starting to get cold too. And cops, they're after us. And
they found the stash.
Yeah. And I remember this first night. We just like were walking around, and I think like Abe and St. John had some mushrooms, but like not enough, and so like I didn't end up taking any. And then I met this girl downtown. God, I think her name was Chrissy, and like I think I had met her once or twice just in like passing associations throughout that summer, but she just like had nothing to do and was like, hey, can I come hang out with you guys? And we were like, yeah, why not? We're just gonna go walk around town. So we were like walking around parks and like doing whatnot. And then, like, me and her start, like, making out and stuff.
Oh,
and
cool.
And then Abe and Brett, or Abe and St. John were like, yeah, like, we're going to split, but, like, we don't, like, I think they were going to stay at one of their parents' house, but they're like, yeah, we can't have anyone else over. So it was, like, me and this girl. She's like, oh, yeah, you can come stay at my place. I was like, seriously? That would be fucking awesome. And
wow.
And so she takes me to this place. So we walk, and she takes me to this place, and we walk up on it, and it's like the known fucking crack den in town.
Oh shit!
And I'm just like, fuck, dude, because it's one of those big houses that have like a shared kitchen, and then all these just like really tiny little rooms that are dirt cheap, and so then crackheads just live there.
Yeah, it's a flop house.
Yeah, total flop house. I'm like, oh no, dude, like this is crazy. But she's like, yeah, dude, like it's fine. We'll go and like. You can stay here. And so we go in, and yeah, dude, and it's real flop house shit, like kids passed out on the walls with like fucking ties around their arms and shit, and just like fuck it, it's like hoarder status everywhere. There's just piles of stuff and food cartons, and like the place is just gnarly, dude.
Yep.
Yeah, and like we go and like knock on this one door, and she's like, oh yeah, this is like a guy I know, and he's just clearly fucking like done all the meth and is just like super intense. And she's like, oh yeah, maybe we shouldn't hang out with him right now. And I was like, yeah, let's not, please, let's not. And then we like go over to her apartment, and she's like, yeah, this will be cool, like we can just crash on the couch here. And I was like, okay, thank God, like it at least seems chill. And like 5 minutes later, her mom like burst through the door, also like clearly having done all the meth.
Oh no.
And she's like, who the fuck is this? And like freaks out. And I was just like, I better just go. And I didn't even I just sort of packed my stuff up and was like, I'm out of here. She's like, I'm really sorry. I was like, yeah, well, I'm sorry that you live here. Like, I don't know, I'm leaving.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, and so then I walked to IHOP. It's like 2 a.m, and then I just like walked to IHOP and like bought coffees until like 8 a.m. and then I think they finally like kicked me out. But then it was 8 a.m, sun was up, and so then I went and found a park and like crashed out. And then and then oh God, see, and now this is where it's all fuzzy. I don't know, I must have gotten into something else this other night, and then man, you know what, this might have been the night. Yeah, you know what, this is how it went down. Okay, it's on my list. Totally. So the second night, so Saturday night, yeah, I call up the homeboys, like John and Joe and Chris. I'm like, yeah, I left home, and like this is fucked, but you guys want to hang out? And like they're like, yeah, dude, of course, like because they had barely even heard from me since like the whole thing. I think Joe like saw me at school, and I like told him, but yeah, and so we all got together, and I think one of those dudes had some mushrooms, because again they were plentiful in that time, and so we all took some mushrooms. Oh yeah, and St. John, it was the crew, man. It was me, Joe, St. John, Chris, and John. It was like my best buds in the whole world.
Nice.
And we all take a pretty small amount. Like, none of us are tripping that hard. It's just, like, real fun. And so we, like, go up the canyon and go to this camp spot that we all, like, knew and loved. We just, like, built a fire and, like, hung around there for a while and tripped out. Dude, that night was so weird, too, because, like, we're just in the dark. And, like, we, once again, like, went to the woods, didn't bring flashlights or fuck all anything.
Yeah, but if there's stars or moonlight, like, it's enough.
Yeah, totally. But that night, we all split up to go gather up some firewood, and we all come back and, like, throw some wood on the fire. And John comes walking back out of the woods just fucking white as a ghost. And he's just, like, staggering back. And we're just like, hey, buddy, like, you doing okay? And he's just like, yeah, something really fucked up just happened. And we're like, what's going on? And he's like, well, I was gathering sticks, and I reached down and I grabbed a stick, and it was a deer leg attached to a dead deer. And we're like, fuck, dude, oh no. And he's just totally fucking mortified, you know?
Oh my god.
Because, like, when you're tripping, because he's like, oh, this stick feels weird. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, it's kind of stuck in the ground. Oh, it's not really moving. And then he kind of, like, looks up, and it's like, oh my god, I'm, like, hanging on to a dead deer right now. Like, you know, like, oh man, like,
yanking on its leg.
Yeah, totally.
Fuck.
So yeah, so it took him a minute to sort of bounce back from that.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, you know, and we all hang around the campfire, and, like, I think someone had a guitar, and we, like, play some songs, and then we're down. Oh god. Oh no, we didn't have a guitar. What we did have was a little boombox tape deck and one tape.
Of course.
And that tape was Forest for the Trees.
Yes!
And Brett had just bought that tape.
Nice.
And none of us had ever heard it, and we all, like, loved it, and so we just, like, kept playing it. It was like one side would in, like, go to the next side.
Yeah.
That side would in.
Well, and it all kind of flows into itself, you know?
Yeah, like, totally. Yeah, and we're just having a blast, man, and we must have listened to that. I mean, we listened to that tape on repeat the entire night, so probably, like,
dozen times.
Yeah. I mean, it's only a 45-minute record. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know, like 10 times in a row probably.
Yep.
And so we're and this night's just fun. Like, at one point we leave the campsite, and then we go down to, like, a rest area, and there's, like, a little that's, like, next to the river, and and this came up recently too. And Chris, my buddy Chris, like, went down, and he was, like, fucking around by the river, and he slipped and, like, fell, like, put his feet in, and so his, like, socks and shoes got soaked, and he, like, comes back and he's just bitching up a storm about it, and we're just like, yeah, dude, that does suck. And he's like, someone give me their socks, and we were like, fuck no, man. Like,
so they can get wet in your shoes.
Yeah, we all have our dry socks. And he's like, will someone give me one sock? And we're like, no, dude, like,
it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, totally. And so and
put your shoes next to the fire and shut up.
Yeah, totally. And, like, you know, it wasn't even that big a deal, but of course it's super uncomfortable to have wet shoes and socks, and so he's just, like, bitching up a storm, and we're just like, dude, like, you gotta just let it go, man. And then that was the night too. We were all just, like, sitting in the car listening to Forest for the Trees, smoking joints, and on the dash of John's car was it said Buick. And we realized that all the letters in Buick are their own single words. And so we're, like, rearranging all the letters to make sentences. We're like, B-U-I-C, K? You know, like, C-U-I-B, K? Like, but it was always, like, end with K, and, like, I don't know, it was so funny. And, like, we tripped on that for way too long. Like, and so that night was just really fun. It was, like, really cathartic for me, because I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going back to, you know, like, I don't know where I'm going to live, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do at this point with my life, but at least I got, like, my best buds here, and, like, we're doing what I did all summer to get me in this situation, so, you know, fuck it, man.
I've learned 0 lessons, and I'm enjoying the fuck out of it.
Yeah, and, you know, and so the sun comes up, and everyone's, like, got a place to be, and I was like, fuck it, guys, just drop me downtown, you know, I'll hang out, I'll meet up with someone, or I'll go get some winks in the park, which I think actually, no, I did not, but I just hung out downtown, and there was, like, this cool record store slash head shop that would sell all manner of things to underage kids and like smoke bowls outside the shop and stuff. So
sweet.
They did not last long.
Yeah.
But I went down there and just like was hanging out with those dudes. I had some CDs on me and was like, you guys want to listen to some Flaming Lips and shit? Like, you know? So hung out with those dudes, and then like I think everyone reconvened back, like some people that I knew reconvened back downtown in the afternoon. And then it was so funny, like at one point like someone comes back with the boombox still playing Forest for the Trees. Jeez. And we're just like, dude, yes, let's do it again.
I love it.
So we like play that downtown while we like kick some hack, and then everyone takes off because it's Sunday night, and I was like, fuck, now I really don't know what I'm gonna do, and I'm probably gonna try and go to school tomorrow, but that's gonna be weird.
Right.
And about that time, my dad pulled up downtown. Because, look, you know, there weren't that many places to go in Fort Collins, so downtown was a pretty reasonable expectation.
You've been gone for a few days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and I was, at that moment, too, I was hanging out. That Chrissy girl had met up with me again. I was like, sweet, a girl that I can make out with. And, and, like, we were sort of hitting it off, and, like, she was really cool. But anyhow... Yeah, Dad pulls up and he's like, hey man, like, we should talk. It's like, all right. And, you know, like, get into the whole thing, and he was like, you know, I talked to your mom, and like, clearly that's not gonna work, and clearly you're not gonna just abide like lockdown. And I was like, you got that right. He's like, so you can come live with me, I won't put you on lockdown, there will be some rules, but like, you'll have some freedom as well. And I was like, all right man, like, that's probably the best for me, because I have zero plan as to like where I'm gonna stay and like what I'm gonna do. So that's when I moved in with my dad, and
damn,
that did not go very well because my dad's a weird churchy asshole, and he also lived like he lived like in a, I mean, I guess you call it a suburb of Fort Collins. So, like, getting out to, like, hang out with my friends was tricky, and, you know, I barely liked my dad and really didn't like my stepmom or my stepbrother, and my half-brother was, like, 3 and a giant raging pain in the ass, especially when I'm 16.
Right.
So, like, just none of this was very cool, and, things were, like, getting pretty tense there, and then that's when I left again, and I left his house and was like, I don't know what I'm going to go do, but I called up St. John and was like, hey man, let's figure something out. Like, we've got access to these mushrooms, like, let's figure something out, because St. John had been homeless that entire time, like that whole summer and into about that time, and it was starting to get cold. It was like, dude, you can't just keep couch crashing, right? Like, let's figure this out. And he was like, yep, you're right, dude, like, let's figure something out. And so we ended up over at Mikey's house one night, and he was like, well, I have a roommate moving out literally in like 4 days, or it was like a week or something. And he was like, if you guys want to take that room, it'll make rent stupid cheap for all of us. And we were like, hell yeah. So that was the birth of Sane.
Sane.
Yep. And, you know, you've all heard many of those stories, but then I won't get into my whole high school story or dropping out of high school or even more of the Sane stories. That's pretty much the cap to the summer of love, you know? It's like that whole summer, and then we moved in there in like, I don't know, I want to say like December or something like that.
So, like, do you want to go into any more detail about like why you moved out of your dad's house, or like?
Sure. I mean,
because I mean, you know, you say he was a big churchy asshole, and you just didn't want to be there anymore. Like, I get that, but like,
he's got the dad episode coming.
Yeah,
like, I'm saying, like, if you want to save it for the dad episode, that's
no,
totally
it's
cool
fine.
Too,
it's fine to put it in here, because it's really there wasn't one big catalyst. It was just. I just had reached a point where I couldn't communicate with my dad anymore. And, you know, in the episode I did with my mom, she talked about that too, where it's like the only way he would talk is just with scripture. And so it's just like you could never get anywhere with him, because, like, at a certain point you'd hit this scripture wall where he's just, like, quoting verses at you. And it's like, dude, talk to me like a person. Talk to me from your heart. Like, don't just fucking fire off these talking points at me, and so we just like could not get along, you know. And I'm trying to convince him that like the stuff that I was into was on the level, and that like, you know, he should give it a chance, and that, you know, like I'm not a bad person and XYZ, and we just couldn't meet in the middle a lot, you know. And again, this will get more into we'll get more into this when I do the full dad episode, but obviously being the weird churchy asshole that he was, he had some just like basic moral beliefs that I couldn't really abide by, you know. Like he was very anti-LGBT and very like conservative-ish and like anti, you know, I mean, he was a conservative, you know? He was a Christian, born-again conservative, and so there were just a lot of things where it's like, I can't fucking hang with you, man, if you're gonna bash, like, gay people and stuff, and, like...
Fair enough.
And, you know, even though my mom and I were on the rocks, I still loved her, and my mom is a lesbian, and, like, you're gonna sit and tell me that my mom is going to hell? And, like, come on, man,
That's
like, get the fuck out of here, dude.
Yeah, no kidding.
So there's just a lot of stuff like that. Plus just the situation. I just, you know, I had already carved out this life for myself, dude. There's no going back, man. After you spend a whole summer fucking running around with your friends, tripping and doing anything you want to do, there was no fucking, like, living under a parental thumb anymore, man. Like, I wasn't old enough, but I was beyond it, you know? Like, I had moved, I had progressed beyond what that life was going to be like for me. Not to say that I was, like, old enough or responsible enough to handle it, because I fucking certainly wasn't.
Sure.
But I'd argue that I just barely even am now, so... like, and I know 40-year-olds who, like, can't get their shit together,
well,
so...
And, you know, clearly, you know, apart from the shitwater incident, like, you know, you guys managed to successfully navigate sane, so...
We did, and we kind of had, like, a... You know, and it's like... Nothing good lasts forever, but we kind of had another repeat. It's like, it followed the same trajectory as that summer. Like, when we did the whole sane thing, it's like things started out just as this beautiful, magical thing, and we're like completely free, and we're doing all the things we want. We're rewiring our brains. We're like doing all the things, dude. And then things start taking some darker, weirder turns. Some bad things happen. You know, and then we can just never really get it back, you know, it's over. And so, like, that era ends and we move on. So, and, you know, and that's, you know, fuck.
Way it goes.
Thus is life. The roller coaster, as they say, you know, the ups and the downs and the cycles. And, you know, because I've certainly had other cycles where it's like this magical time where, like, seems like nothing can go wrong, and then something does, and it kind of puts an end to all of it. So
yeah. Then they take away your PPTQs, and, like, how are you supposed to fucking play Magic anymore?
I know, right? Dude, for real. It does feel like that.
I know.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if I have too much more to say on it, but yeah, that was just kind of the dark, you know, the dark times closed in, and
you know, I just wondered if maybe there was like a little more detail.
No, and again, I don't remember if there was any one big catalyst or like one blowout. There probably was one blowout moment, but it was just clearly like, dude, I can't live with this guy. I also can't live, like, way out in the boonies. Like, maybe if he lived in town, because he was giving me freedom to, like, go out on the weekends and stuff. But it's just like, dude, I can't, like, it was pretty terrible.
Well, and as far as your mom was concerned, like, you couldn't live there because her partner at the time thought that you were a criminal, basically.
Yeah, and, you know, and by extension, my mom thought that as well, at least, I think. And, yeah, I mean, going back there was not an option. I wasn't going to have any more freedom there. And, yeah, I was always going to just be under the eye of, like, what are you up to? So, like, that didn't feel like an option.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, it was, like, just figure out how to live on my own. And, yeah, and, I mean, when Brett and I were able to lock up that place, I hit them both up and was like, hey, like, I've got it figured out. Like, I've got a place. It's going to be dirt cheap, and my buddy's helping me out with the rent. I didn't tell him I was, like, going to be selling mushrooms to pay the rent, but...
Of course not.
You know, I was like, it's going to be dirt cheap. We'll figure it out. I'm going to get, like, a part-time job or whatever, and, like, going to figure it out. And they were just like, all right, man, like, clearly, like, you're just gonna do what you're gonna do. And I was like, I clearly am, and I like, you know.
Well, and you're not getting into any trouble. Like, come on.
No, I was skirting, but like I was being fairly responsible. I don't know, at least by my own standard.
Well, I mean, how many times did they have to come pick you up from jail? You know?
Yeah,
like,
never.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you weren't. Other parents weren't calling them and like having them come pick you up. Like,
right.
You know, like, come on, man. Like, you weren't actually getting in trouble yet. You know, like,
right.
Skirting it, certainly.
Right.
God knows if they actually knew that, but
yeah. Well, yes. This episode or this series of episodes, boy, Mom, let me tell you. Yeah, you probably don't know a lot of these. So. Sorry to put you through any of that, and if I like scared you or freaked you out, but just know I was, you know, again, I was being responsible by my own standard, and I handled my shit pretty well. But
and I think you were doing something that's perfectly normal for kids to do.
I agree. You know? I agree. It could have been way worse. Didn't get any girls pregnant.
Right.
Like, at a young age. Didn't fuck with meth or cocaine or heroin or any of the gnarly stuff.
Didn't cause any major property
Hell, I didn't
damage.
even drink, man.
Didn't
like,
steal anything. Like,
yeah.
You know.
I tripped probably 30 times before I had ever even been drunk.
Right.
You know, like, I just went this way, you know?
Yeah, same. I mean, like, that was a lot more interesting to me, you know?
Yeah.
And part of it, too, is just that, you know, by that age, my parents had started drinking. Like, they didn't really drink much when I was younger. Like, my dad kind of unwound by smoking weed.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Dad. But, you know, like, they didn't really tell us what was going on, but, like, you know, my uncle and, like, some of my dad's friends, you know, like, there were people around us who, like, that was their vice, you know, but, like, by the time I started becoming a teenager, my parents, that was well in their past, and they had started, like, buying wine, and like they had a really small selection of bottles in a pantry that they called their wine cellar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like they had like a literal cabinet with liquor bottles in it that they called a liquor cabinet, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, like they were getting drunk, and so I think part of my rebellion was like, I don't want to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, let's try this shit that they did when they were young that everyone is saying is fun, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, here we are now.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know what, like, so majorly inspired me to, like, fuck with psychedelics. I mean, part of it, I think, was DARE. Because, like, I do remember in 6th grade DARE when they were, like, describing all the different effects of the drugs. And then they were like, you know, heroin's like this and meth's like this, and then they're like, and then like you could eat LSD and your pizza might just start talking to you.
Exactly.
I was like, are you for real?
You could see cartoons.
Yeah, they were like, you might see cartoon characters. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
buddy. Like,
well, and the crazy thing about my DARE program is that like there was, and I do not know any of the facts surrounding this, but I remember that there was a series of articles in the newspaper about these blue star fake tattoos or like stickers or something that supposedly had LSD, and like kids would lick them to put them on, and like, be getting high, and like pretty sure that was total bullshit.
Of course.
But by the time, you know, I was getting into acid, people were like, oh yeah, you remember like there's that whole blue star like thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, is this what that was supposed to be?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, man, you want to do some of that? And I'm like, fuck yeah. Let's see what that's all about.
Right?
Maybe we'll see fucking Dumbo or something.
Right?
You know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and then it was just so much more than I ever expected, you know?
Oh, God.
It's like, wow, that's not...
That's the thing. If they had actually told you what LSD actually did in the DARE program, I might have been a little freaked out.
Yeah, I might have been a little more scared.
Like, you're going to question everything that you've ever known?
Right? Right, totally.
I'm not sure if I'm ready for that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, cartoon characters, sign me up. But,
Right.
like, you might see multiple realities layered over your own.
Right?
You know?
Like, yeah, society as you know it won't make any sense anymore. Like, your interpretation of your own self won't be there. Like,
yes. Complete and total ego loss.
Yeah.
Like, you just put that on the list.
Yeah, totally.
Wait, what does that mean? You'll forget that you're a thing.
Yeah.
Oh. That doesn't sound like fun. Yeah. People do this?
Right?
I'm saying, like, all you have to do to, like, make kids think twice about doing psychedelics is literally tell them what it's like.
Yep.
Oh, if you eat too many mushrooms, you might barf and then be really high for a long time. Like,
yeah.
No.
Yeah, watch worlds collapse in on themselves and, like, be reborn right before your eyes. Like, yeah,
right?
Okay.
You can never escape from the hallucinations because if you close your eyes, you'll just...
They're just even crazier.
Crystalline cathedrals sprouting out of your skull. Like, you know,
for real.
It's a fucking high-speed roller coaster that you get strapped into that lasts for hours, you know? Like,
for real, man.
Children are not lining up for that.
No.
Ugh.
God, it's funny to think about, like, the myth that, like, there are just people running around, like, dosing children, too, with, like, all manner of drugs.
Yeah, and none of that shit ever held much water for me. Like, the whole fucking lacing drugs with other drugs thing, too. It's
right.
Like, no one's lacing LSD with heroin. Like, that's throwing away good heroin. Like,
yeah, and it's like, yeah, drugs are money.
Yeah.
Like, no one's just peppering in, like, some other money because they think it'll be, like, funny or weird to, like,
seriously,
give you weed with PCP on it or something, you know? Like,
no one ever cut a drug with another drug. Like, that's stupid. I mean, apart from, like, maybe cutting cocaine with lidocaine or something like that.
Sure.
But, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no one cuts meth with fucking coke, you know? Like,
I mean, I guess, like, the old ecstasy pills would be, like, Molly with meth or Molly with, like, heroin.
All right. So,
but those were, like, designer drugs also.
I feel like that is something that's, like, partial myth and partial truth. Like,
right.
Definitely they were fucking cutting some of that ecstasy with meth. I don't know about heroin. But I also wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, the press tabs, I mean, like, meth is cheaper than Molly. So, like, in that case, sure. Like, that's one case where that almost certainly happened. Yeah. Almost all the time.
Yeah.
But, apart from that, like...
Right.
Nobody's fucking putting meth on your acid. Like, that's just... It would be so much cheaper to just sell you bunk, you know?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Right?
Like, if you're trying to be a rip-off artist. Like,
right. Well, and that's the thing, like, if you're a drug dealer, you also don't want to sell someone a bad experience, because the idea is you want a repeat customer.
Exactly.
So you don't want to give someone some weed that gets them, like, all twacked out because you put fucking angel dust on it.
Oh, God,
and then they come back and they're like, what the hell was on that weed? You know, it's just like, what the fuck? No, you just want that person to keep coming back to buy the weed.
That's my favorite myth, and, like, one that was very pervasive when I was in high school is, like, dude, I smoked this weed that was laced with acid. And I'm like... First of all, no, you didn't.
Right.
Secondly, like, that must have been some good-ass weed, because, like, damn.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But, I mean, like, you know, especially when you're new to smoking weed, sometimes you would get so high that you would hallucinate, you know, and, like...
Yeah.
That's not LSD, that's just good-ass weed, you know?
For sure.
And, like, I tried explaining to my friends, I'm like, heat destroys LSD, like, you... fucking hold a flame to some acid and it will never do anything ever.
Right.
You know? You're like, oh no, I got really fucked up. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's because you weren't smoking that fucking cheap ass dirt weed you usually smoke.
Right.
Come on, man.
Yeah, wild. Well, anyhow, that's that kind of rounds that out. So,
dude, what a fucking great summer. I mean, like, you know, bummer about your fucking shitty ass intervention.
Yeah, totally. Oh, I guess I should put one more cap on that. So, to the credit of some people, both my mom and my grandma have individually apologized to me for that. And
good.
Said that was a bad move. Yeah, my grandma was the first one. Like, the next time I saw her, she was just like... She's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, she's like, I came to the thing because they called me, and then, like, she's like 10 minutes into it, I realized that this was not, like, the thing to be doing.
Your grandma sounds cool as fuck.
She is cool. And then my mom, actually not even that much later, I think also apologized and was like, look, yeah, that was clearly the wrong way to go. And, and in the time since, I've been able to, like, educate my mom about, like, psychedelics, and I think I even got her to read a Terrence book, so...
Cool.
So it's like, she gets it now, and, like, yeah, and obviously, like, I've turned out fine, so... Dude, so I think everyone, like, gets it, that it was fine.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Despite fucking having to support yourself in a rad fucking acid flop house, like, you... fucking turned out great.
Yeah, totally, man. There were ups and downs, and but yeah, I always managed to pull it out.
If they knew at that time what you guys were actually up to, insane, they would have been like, "Oh fuck."
Yeah. Well, and like they had to have known because like I wouldn't even let them in the front door.
Okay.
Like if I was going out for lunch with my mom, I was like, I will meet you outside. Because I mean, people are just smoking weed in there 24/7.
Right.
First of all,
yep.
Like to say nothing of all the other like, just like, oh, do you guys not have a single white light in the house? It's just only Christmas lights. It's a weird move, like
it's for religious purposes.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it.
Totally. Yeah. So I mean. But it was those couple years were very much like a don't ask, don't tell, and my mom even was like, hey, like, we're not going to go get you officially emancipated, but I am still legally responsible for you, so if you get yourself into trouble, it comes back on me, so just keep that in mind, like, when you are, like, finishing out these last 2 years before you turn 18. I was like, that's fair, I will, like, do my best to not get in trouble, and... luckily I didn't.
I guess that's kind of fair. Like, legally, she can't really give up guardianship of you. Like, so she was being cool by letting you, like, do your own thing.
Well, and, like, so we could have gone and got myself emancipated. Both my parents agreed that they would have signed off on it. It was just kind of going to be all this, like, court nonsense and, like, paperwork and stuff.
Right.
And it was, like, by that time, I was... so by that time that we were like having that talk, I was nearly 17, so it was just like, okay, like one more, just like get through another year, dude.
Can you keep it together for one more year?
Yeah,
yes,
totally.
I can.